The story begins with a woman named Saiva who was expelled from her tribe after a shaman said that she was cursed and that her presence would cause harm to the people around her. When she arrived in a place, she met a man named Liwo who immediately fell in love with her and then invited her to his tribe. Saiva didn't refuse because secretly, she also liked him. When they arrived at the tribe's settlement, Liwo gave her a gift in the form of a wolf's claw necklace, making her who received it felt very happy. After that, driven by lust, they got intimate in front of the campfire. One day, Saiva returned to the tribe to meet her beloved boyfriend Liwo, but she was surprised to find the tribe was quiet like never before. When she entered one of the tents, she was shocked to see the occupant had died, butchered by Soviet soldiers who were carrying out a cleanup operation. When she tried to look for her lover, she felt happy to find him alive, but shortly after, a Soviet soldier named Ukrasky approached Liwo and killed him using a knife. Of course, this made Saiva, who saw it, feel devastated. With broken feelings, Saiva ran away, but unfortunately, the Soviet soldiers saw her and immediately went to chase her. When Saiva was caught, Ukrasky, who had not tasted woman for a long time, harassed her and after that left her in deep terror. Saiva returned to the tribe and hugged the corpse of his lover, then she untied him. After being untied, she found a knife in Liwo's hand. Turned out that Liwo intended to run away but was unfortunately found out and killed. Saiva then took the knife just in case. When Saiva entered one of the tribe's camps, she found a baby girl who was still alive and decided to take the baby and named her Anja. Shortly after, Ukrasky returned and told her that the government was deliberately carrying out a cleanup operation so that all the coal in the area would belong to them. Then he asked Saiva to take him and his fellow soldiers to the road that led to the city because they were lost and didn't know the way home, and if she was willing to help, he would let her and the baby live. When Saiva heard that, she agreed. They then started their journey following her. The next day, when they passed the glacier, Saiva got the chance to run away. She cut them off the rope that tied her with the soldiers and then pulled them into a ravine. Before dropping them, she took a dog tag belonging to one of them. 23 years later, when Saiva and Anja were camping in subarctic Siberia, they were running out of food stock, so Saiva was forced to kill one of his sled dogs for them to eat. She cooked it and ate it very heartily. After they were full, they went to look for another shelter because it was very difficult to find food there. The next day, on their way to the nearest settlement, they were almost caught by Soviet soldiers. But fortunately, the Soviet soldiers didn't see where they were and they were safe. Days later, Saiva found the boat's engine dead and they were forced to row. After traveling quite a long way, they arrived at the Arctic tundra and they decided to stay there, knowing the place was safe and it wouldn't be difficult to find food. So that night, after setting up a shelter, they slept very soundly. The next morning, when Saiva was walking around the area, she found a half-dead soldier man who was weakly asking for help. Looking at him, Saiva immediately took out the mash sheet that she bought, but when the distance got shorter, the man suddenly fainted her. Out of pity, Saiva took the man to her place and then treated him the way she could. Not long after, Anja came and asked Saiva who the man was and where he came from. Saiva answered that she didn't know because she found the man already in the area in a weak, helpless state. Hearing their conversation, the man woke up and told them his name Loki. Anja introduced herself and her stepmother Saiva, the one who had saved him. Anja told him that he was lucky because her stepmother helped him because if she didn't, he would have died by now. Hearing that, Loki thanked them for their help, so the next day, Loki came with them to help hunt for food. On the way, Loki held Saiva's hand and said thank you because she had saved his life. Then Loki asked what he could do to repay their kindness. Anja said that he must bring reindeer for them. Hearing this, Loki promised that he would fulfill their request. When they arrived at a place, they caught a seal and after returning to their camp, they ate the seal's meat raw. To break the ice, Loki took his transistor radio while the Saiva showed shadow show using her handmade puppet. Anja was very entertained with the show. That night, when Anja went to get ice for drinking water, Saiva asked what Loki was doing in the tundra. Loki told her that the government was sending all able-bodied men to this tundra to expel all the living tribes because this area was going to be used for mining. Saiva asked what kind of fate waiting for Loki if the Soviet soldiers found him as he was now an AWOL soldier. Loki answered that he would be shot dead because he had left his duty. Hearing that, Saiva felt sorry for him and said that he could be with them instead of returning and getting sentenced to death until the lake was frozen again. Loki was very happy to hear that, so he gave a gift to Saiva by having sex with her, making Anja, who was peeking at them from outside, very tempted and curious about it too. After they finished doing their business, Anja came in, and as if not respecting her mother's feelings, Anja, who was driven by lust, teased Loki and asked him to comb her hair. Seeing that made Saiva heartbroken. In the morning, when they were still asleep, Loki went hunting for deer to fulfill his promise, but unfortunately, when he was about to shoot the deer he had aimed at, 2 Soviet soldiers came to arrest him. Loki was taken to be killed, but when he was about to be put on the boat, he beat up the 2 soldiers and immediately shot them without mercy. Then he went home with their supplies. When he returns, Saiva asked why Loki had gone without telling her first. Loki didn't answer her question, and then Saiva decided to tell Loki about the curse that was on her, but suddenly, Anja came and invited Loki to come in to have sex with her. This made Saiva very upset because she had lost her chance to tell him the truth. After they were satisfied with their business, Anja came out and invited Saiva inside. Seeing Anja's hair was a little messy and her clothes were open, Saiva was disappointed because she had the heart to take Loki from her, and because of that, Saiva couldn't sleep at all. Since that night, it seemed that day by day, Anja and Loki were getting closer and liked spending time together. Then at that time, Loki asked why Anja and Saiva chose to live in this place far away from everywhere. Anja answered that Saiva didn't like living next to other people. Anja asked if Loki already had a wife, and Loki said that he hadn't married, making Anja happy, knowing she had the chance to live with him as his wife. As time went by, Anja and Loki got bolder to show their affection in front of Saiva, so that night, fed up with their behavior, Saiva went hunting. When she left, Anja and Loki satisfied their lust as much as they could until morning. The next morning, when Saiva came home, she felt sad because since Loki was close to Anja, he stopped seeing her again. One day, Loki finally managed to shoot a deer and then brought it to fulfill his promise to them. Anja cooked it very deliciously, and after it was cooked, they ate it very heartily. While they were eating, Saiva tried to tease Loki, but Loki, who already loved Anja, didn't seem to be interested in her anymore. After having a lot of intercourse with Loki, Anja finally got pregnant. Anja told Saiva that in a few days, she and Loki would leave and decide to live in the city on their own. Hearing that, Saiva forbade her because Anja didn't know everything about Loki, but Anja denied it and said that she already knew everything about him because he had told her everything. Knowing that, Saiva immediately fell silent. Anja hugged her and then left. After Anja left, Saiva cried because she didn't want to be left by Anja, whom she had cared for since she was a baby. That night, without any shame, Anja and Loki did their business behind Saiva and hurt her feelings even more. The next morning, Loki went hunting to prepare for the trip to the city. In the afternoon, Anja packed up the things she wanted to bring and then invited Saiva to come with her to the city. But Saiva, who was afraid that her presence would bring disaster to other people, refused to come along. Saiva was heartbroken. The feelings of jealousy and sadness were mixed in her heart. She then offered herself to comb and braid Anja's hair. Hearing that, Anja without any hesitation accepted the help, not knowing what would happen to her. Saiva, who had lost her patient and was driven by jealousy, had the heart to strangle Anja using her own hair until poor Anja died. Somewhere else, Loki, who was hunting, was seen taking flowers to give to Anja, the woman he loved most, not knowing that the woman he loved so much had died, killed by Saiva, the woman who had raised her from baby. Saiva, on the other hand, had the heart to skin Anja's face. After taking the skin from her face, Saiva threw away the body and then put on Anja's clothes, Anja's face on her face, so that later when Loki came home, he would think that she was Anja. In the evening, Loki came home and saw Anja lying. Loki, not having any suspicion that it was Saiva, immediately approached and made love with her. But when they were busy doing their business, Loki found that the woman he was having in front of him was not Anja, but Saiva, who was wearing Anja's skin on his face. Loki was horrified and immediately ran away without wearing clothes, while Saiva, who was left behind, cried regretting all her actions, but all her regrets were useless because they wouldn't make Anja come back to life.